Hey everybody, it's Charlie Morgan here and welcome back to my YouTube channel. And in today's video, I'm going to be discussing the easiest and hardest niches of the agency space. And I promise you that the answer that I give you is one that you will not expect, right? It's something that you've probably never considered before. And I'm going to give you a really good niche that you can pick. And it works really well. And I'm also going to tell you which niche is the hardest to pick and why it's hard. And we're going to sort of weigh up some pros and cons here between these two different places. I'm just going to quickly move the camera over to here. That's better because it looks like the light is a bit of a cloudy day. But here we are. So, easiest and hardest niches. Okay, so first of all, bit of context. I run an agency of my own. It's called NorthFlow Consulting. We've scaled it. You know the story. But I also run a consulting business called Imperium Agency. And right now we help 110 different agency owners get more clients and scale and grow. And we've got a complete variety of niches. We've got people in the veterinary niche, we've got people in e-com, we've got the spectrum of niches as far as it goes. We've seen everything. We've made appointment setting work and sales work and service delivery work for most niches now. And what we've been able to sort of realize over the course of the last year, basically, is that there's a sort of underlying theme as to what niche is easiest and what niche is hardest. Now, like I said, like the answer I give you is you're probably not going to be expecting it as to what the easiest niche is, but I'll explain it in a second. Now, if you're watching this video, you probably have an agency and you probably have a niche, right? And you've got a hunch or a feeling or an emotion that's telling you that the niche you've currently got selected is not the easiest one to do. And that if you selected a different niche, things would be easier and the problems that you're currently facing, you wouldn't have to face. Now, that's the whole sort of logic of niche hopping, right? A lot of people hop niches, and by hop niche I mean it's when you are in a current niche and then you decide that it's too painful or too difficult or it's too saturated or any other sort of narrative you've told yourself, and so you decide to go into a different niche. And you can do that, and sometimes it makes business sense to actually hop niche and change niche, but a lot of the time it's more out of an emotional situation, like you're trying to hop your way out of the pain as opposed to actually facing it. And for as long as your business is basically pain, right? And as long as you're running away from pain, you're literally running away from business progress. It's a really interesting sort of model to apply. If there's something in the business that's painful, then it's a really good indication that that's the thing you need to be doing to grow. Like the tasks that you procrastinate the most are the tasks that you should focus on doing the most, because procrastination is a really good indication of an area in which if you applied yourself to, you'd be able to make progress, because subconsciously your brain doesn't want to make progress because it's quite comfortable. And so if you feel resistance, or if you feel procrastination, or if you feel a sense of like despair or pain when doing a certain activity, it's a sign that it's exactly what you need to be doing to make progress. And so the problem with niche hopping is that people hop out of the pain, like I said. And as long as you're hopping out of pain and in trying to sort of get away from the pain, then things are never going to work out for you, because the only way to really achieve business reward is to go through a significant amount of pain. Like when you sort of look at any agency, a successful agency owner or successful business owner, you'll realize that their level of success is pretty much the sum result of all the pain they've tolerated, right? Because when people talk about giving up or throwing the towel in and just sort of quitting the agency, the only reason people do that is because it becomes too painful. And so the ability to persist through pain is the most important thing. And when you pick a niche, it's quite an important thing to bear in mind, because every niche is painful, every niche has problems. And so this purpose of this video is to give you a bit of a mental framework you can use to pick an easier niche or avoid a harder niche, basically. So you might be wondering, okay, well, what is this niche, right? What's the niche that you're talking about? Which one's easier? You've probably got this little tingling sense of shiny object syndrome, like, oh, finally, I knew I was gonna get across to a video that told me to do something different. It changed my whole life. That's not the case, because what I'm going to tell you is that the easiest niche is the hardest niche, and the hardest niche is the easiest niche. Now you might be wondering, what the fuck? How does that make sense? Here's my point. Whichever niche you select is the easiest and the hardest niche simultaneously. So the easiest niche for you right now is the niche that you currently have selected, and the hardest niche for you right now is the current niche that you have selected, right? Niches operate in a vacuum, which means that they're individual groups of people, and when you operate with those groups of people, you're going to face individual problems, okay? And so if you start to think that another niche is easier than your current niche, then you're fooled. And there's a very big reason behind this, because when you niche hop, it's because you have shiny object syndrome. It's because you believe the grass will be greener elsewhere. And the grass is not greener elsewhere. The grass is greener where you water it. And so let me explain why it's harder and why it's easier in the same place. So you've got to understand that when you pick a niche, like when you start your agency, the first thing you do is you select a niche or whatever that might look like. And like in the beginning, it's hard. You don't understand the niche, you don't understand their language, you don't understand anything about them or what they do. And it's really horrible because there's all sorts of problems that come with this niche. Now, the cool thing to understand about niches is that every single niche can be scaled to 7 figures. Now, not all of them, there are going to be some that you probably couldn't do it in because of certain parameters, but the main niches that you think about and that you consider, every single one of them can be scaled to 100K a month. And that's evidenced by the fact that there are agencies out there that are doing 100K a month in all these different niches. So we know it's possible. But the reason it's the easiest and the hardest simultaneously is because the more you stay with a niche and the longer you work on it, the easier it gets and the hardness of it decreases. Okay, so over time, if you stick to a specific niche, it will be really hard initially and it will get easier over time. And so what I want you to imagine is that when you pick a niche, let's say you work in e-commerce for 6 months, right? And you've been doing e-com for 6 months and it's hard. It's horrible, it's difficult. You know, you can't get clients, you can't deliver results, it's tricky, right? But like, you've got to realize that you've put 6 months into this thing and you'll probably find that 6 months in, it's not as hard as it was when you started. But if you now suddenly jump into a different niche like chiropractors, then you've basically stripped away 6 months of progress. Now, yes, you can apply different business lessons and mental models over to a different niche. Like, that's possible to do. But my point here is that like the easiest niche that you can pick is the niche that you've stuck to for 3 years. And the hardest niche you can pick is a niche that you've got no previous experience in, or that you've just decided you want to get into because the current niche you're in is painful. And that's a really important thing to understand, because picking niches would be like saying that you want to be a professional athlete and then you change your sport every 6 months. So you're like, okay, my end goal is to get to the Olympics, right? And this is the interesting thing, is because people are like, I want to get to 100K a month, but they don't really, think about their niche until they've decided that, they use the niche as a vehicle to achieve the goal. But like, if you're an athlete and you're like, I want to get to the Olympics, then you have to stick to one sport for like 10 years, 5 to 10 years, non-stop, every day. And in the initial stages, that sport is really, really difficult. And it gets more difficult because obviously they progress through competitive levels, and that's obviously slightly different to business. But switching niche every 3 to 6 months is like saying you want to get to the Olympics and then doing like 3 months of pole vault, and then you're like, oh, this pole vault thing, like, it's too difficult, like, I don't think I can do this, and there's too many problems with this pole vault thing. And so like, you then jump into, pun not intended, you get into something like high jump, and then you're like, oh, this is easy. Because what happens when you switch niche is the initial problems that you have to solve in that niche are actually quite easy, right? They're not too difficult. Those little initial sort of things that you do when you start an agency, they're quite easy. Starting a website, doing a little rebrand, coming up with an offer, logos, messaging. These things that you do initially to start your agency are quite easy. They're not difficult. And so you hop out of a niche that's hard into one that you think is easy, and that first month period is always quite straightforward because you're just doing these little shiny objects like starting a website. And so like, you think, oh, this is easy. And then what happens is like, you try and start doing appointment setting, and then it's not easy. So here's an interesting thing to consider, right? Let's say that you're in a niche or niche, whatever you want to call it. And right now, like, you're not getting enough appointments, you're not getting enough clients. And you convince yourself that the reason this is happening is not because of you, but it's because of the market. It's because of the saturation, the competition, the extremely competitive nature of offers nowadays. You think that that's the problem. And so what you do is you just sort of throw the towel in on the niche, and you're like, okay, I don't want to give up on business, but I want to give up on this niche because it's just, it's getting too hard to get clients. And that's actually quite often the case for e-commerce right now. If you haven't seen my video on why e-com is the hardest niche, you should go and watch that. I know it's a bit of a sort of contradiction to this video, but go and watch that if you're in the e-com niche and you're struggling, because it will probably resonate with you. But what was I saying? So like, appointment booking is your bottleneck. You can't get clients. And so what happens is you try for some time to get clients in e-com or whatever it is that you're in, and then you're like, oh, I can't get clients. So you just go and switch and you change to a different niche. And then what happens is you try and get appointments in this new niche. But the issue is that appointment setting is a skill. right? Appointment setting is an internal like understanding of psychology and persuasion and skill and persistence and all these things that you have to have as an entrepreneur to make the system work. And so what happens is you hop into a new niche and then you go to try and do appointment setting, but you don't get appointments in that niche. And then what happens is you don't look internally at the cause of the issue yourself, you look externally and think, oh, I knew this would happen in this new niche. The niche is the problem. Now understand, the niche is never, ever, ever the problem. Very rarely, sometimes, but the niche is rarely the problem. The problem is almost always you, okay? Almost always. And that's a sort of bitter pill to swallow, because it's easy for us to sort of blame external things as to why we're in a situation that we're in. But like if you're not getting appointments in your current niche, it won't be any easier in a different niche, no matter what someone tells you, like, because the issue you have is personal. You know, there's a really good, what's the book? I think it was from Seneca, called Letters from a Stoic, and it's about Stoic philosophy, Seneca. And what he's saying, there's a really good point in that book where he says that if you have problems, issues, and you travel to a different country, then you take those problems and issues with you. And so back in the Greek philosophy days, people used to sort of use this idea of, like, I think it was Epicurean philosophy, where like all you needed to do was change your environment. Right, and so like if you wanted a big change in personal life, you had to just sort of move to a different country or a different part of the city or whatever that might be. But Seneca was like, no, that doesn't really work, because you're still going to that new environment, and it's not the environment that causes your troubles. You cause your troubles. Everything is controlled by us. That's what the Stoics believed, and so, or at least our perception of events and how they unravel. And so like, you're doing the same thing when you help niche or switch to a different place, is because what you're doing is you're actually taking all your internal personal problems and lack of skill set, and you're just putting yourself into a different environment that the problems will still persist. Okay, and so if you want to try and solve your problems, and if you want to try and like really get to the bottom of this thing, look internally and look at yourself and look at what you're lacking. Don't look at what the niche is lacking. Look at what you're lacking, because it's almost always you. Now, there are some instances where this isn't the case, where like e-commerce right now is a fucking horrible niche. I wouldn't even touch that niche with a barge pole because of the nature of it. And I've recorded the video, like I said, you can go and watch. But for the most part, like, it's always your fault. So this is why, like, the niche that you pick, like if you really want to think like, oh, what's the easiest niche? Well, the easiest niche is the niche that you've stuck to for years. Because like when you start into a niche, or when you start a business, you solve a series of problems, and by solving those problems, you scale and you grow and you develop, and you become the competent business owner that's, you know, able to bypass certain thresholds and limits financially, and you scale and you get up there, and it improves, and then it's easy. So like for me and my business partner Bo, our agency is in the gym owner niche, right? And we've been doing that for 5 years, and getting clients for us is a fucking breeze. Right, it's really, really easy for us to land appointments and get clients. And like, to someone starting in the gym niche, it's really difficult. Okay, and so like my easy is somebody else's difficult, and somebody else's easy is my difficult. So if I try to start a niche in chiropractors, sure, I might find it easier than the average person because I've got agency experience, I've got business experience, but the person who's doing 100K a month would find it really easy to get clients, and it would take me a lot of time to get that. And so this is just basically, it sort of speaks to the importance of just sticking to one damn thing and just weathering all the shit that it throws at you. And so if you've picked a niche and you're thinking about changing, and you've got this sense of shiny object syndrome, just know that the clearest and easiest way to make progress is to actually put up with all the hard shit that comes to begin with. And so if you want something to be easy, it has to be hard. If you want easy, you have to have hard. We have to sort of achieve the goal through its opposite. Okay, this is the genius of contradiction. It's non-binary thinking. It's inversion in its purest form. And if you want an easy life, and if you want an easy agency, then you have to put up with things that are extremely hard and difficult and painful, and what other adjective you want to use to describe difficulty. You've got to do that for a long time. Okay, and it's really important. So you clicked on this video probably thinking, oh yeah, Charlie's going to tell me about this really cool up and coming niche that I can get into that nobody else is in, and it's going to make things really easy. But the truth is that those things don't exist. These little tiny windows of opportunity that seem to present themselves every 10 years. Sure, they come by every now and then. Like, you know, imagine if you got into, what would be a good example? Well, okay. So imagine that you got into the cannabis niche, where just that month before cannabis became legal in Canada or wherever else it's been legalized. You'd be well positioned to take the market by storm, and it'd be an easy niche because nobody else would be in it and it'd be completely blue ocean for you. But like those events, you can't predict the future like that, you know. So like you need to stop trying, because every minute or every hour of every day that you spend trying to predict the future or find something that's easier, you actually make it harder for yourself. And so the easiest way to make it easy is to focus on what's hard. Okay, so that's why the hardest niche is the one you're currently in, but it's also the easiest one that you're currently in. Okay, and this little paradox between easy and hard, and this little shiny object syndrome you've got has got to go, and you've really got to come round to the fact that this is the only way it works. And if you really want an easy life, and if you want that 50 to 100k a month income that you so crave and so desire for all the reasons that you want it, you just got to do the thing for like 3 years and just recognize that problems will manifest in the business, and all you have to do is solve those problems and think critically about them and overcome them, and then another one will present itself, and then you overcome that one, another one, and it's just through solving problems that we tend to get good, right? And as soon as you hop into a different niche, all that problem solving you've done prior is just completely wasted, and you're back to square one. And you'll think it's easy, but it's not. And you'll just go from niche to niche. And we see this, like, we've got some clients in the program now who, before coming to us, that they've been like through like 4 or 5 niches in like a year. And not just niches, but also services. See, people do this for services as well. People do this for appointment booking, like systems, or sales systems. Like, they don't give things enough time to actually see them work. They just we're so hooked on instant gratification, and we're so hooked on pleasure and pain avoidance and all this shit that we try and apply it to business, okay? And it doesn't work, okay? So that's everything for today's video. You may disagree with this, and if you do, by all means, comment below, and I'd love to sort of understand why you disagree and where your thoughts are. But if you did like this video, just hit the like button. It does help me, and it also means that you'll be recommended other videos similar to this that you like, that actually help you, as opposed to all the other shit that's probably in your YouTube recommendations. It's probably going to go a long way if you like this video for yourself and also for me. Also subscribe. I'm not going to get you to put the bell notification thing on because I don't believe in distracting you from your work. But hit subscribe because it's free and you can always change your mind. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this one. Also, in the description, cheeky plug, will be a calendar event to book a call with me or a member of my team to discuss how we can help you grow your agency. There's absolutely no obligation to book it, and chances are we can't even help you. We work with a very specific type of agency, but it could be you. So if you want to explore that, you can book. But yeah, I'll talk to you soon. See you in the next one. Cheers.